Hello everyone, it's Jilly here with a new video for you showing you how to make these gorgeous alcohol ink earrings. Now those of you that have been following my channel for a long time will know that back in 2017 and I think it was around 2015 I made a couple of videos showing you how to make alcohol ink pendants. In this video I'm going to use a very similar technique that I have developed to show you how to make these earrings using alcohol inks. Now I think you'll be quite surprised when you see how completely random this technique is, and I think you'll be shocked that you can get such pretty earrings from paintings that look so messy and so disorganized. It's actually quite magical when you get to the part where you actually choose which parts of the designs you are going to use for your earrings. So stick with me to the end, no matter how messy this gets. Trust me, stick with me to the end and you'll see what I mean. And if you don't want to listen to the voiceover, don't forget that you can turn the sound down and the subtitles on. Now these are the original alcohol ink pendants that I did, and I used baking foil. I think it's probably called aluminium foil or aluminum foil in America. And lots of people have actually used this technique since I developed it. Both the videos have been very popular, and if you want to see them there will be links pop up above sometime around now. So if you click those links you can go through and watch those videos. So what I've actually done in this video is to take that original alcohol ink technique that I used all those years ago, and I've modified it to use with a different material. So these images coming up now are the results that I got from using the alcohol inks on a different substrate, which I will show you in a moment. And you can see how random these images are. You really don't need to have any particular skill for creating art or painting, but what you do need for this is the desire to just have some fun, to explore with the inks, but you must, absolutely must, wear rubber gloves. You need to have your surface covered because the alcohol ink will stain. So please keep in mind this warning about having good ventilation, a mask over your nose and your mouth, wearing rubber gloves, and cover up all surfaces because this alcohol ink will really stain your skin and any surface that it comes into contact with. And also the rubbing alcohol that I use, definitely not good to breathe in. So please bear that in mind if you do decide to do this project. So instead of baking foil, this is what I use. It's called Yupo paper. There's actually no trees involved in making this. It's a very smooth product and the alcohol inks just sit on the surface, and that's why you're able to blend them so easily. So they spread out on the surface of the paper and they gently blend into each other. You can build layers on layers and you can watch and see the colours just run into each other. It really is a wonderful technique to use because, as I said, you don't need to have any particular skill. You just need the desire to explore. And this that you see here is one of the metallic mixatives that I use. And I also use rubbing alcohol as a blending solution, which you will see later on. So this is the finished piece. Doesn't look very exciting. And you will see at the end how this all comes together and how you can make these extremely random designs work really well for you. Now this is the rubbing alcohol that I use, and you'll see here that I use this to flick all over my design to create interest, to help the colours blend, and just generally experiment with. And you'll see that's all I am doing here, is experimenting, seeing how the colours will run with each other, how they will blend, what will happen if I flick more if I flick more rubbing alcohol on there. It's a very fun and random process, and you don't need to take it too seriously. You just treat it like fun, relaxation, and at the end of it all, when your designs are dry, the best fun is when you are choosing areas to use to cut out for your earrings. And I'll show you how you do that a bit further on. Just to warn you, alcohol inks are very expensive, and I'm using the Tim Holtz inks here, and they are quite expensive. They're about £4 upwards per bottle, and you only get like 10 mils in a bottle. So if you are using these a lot, and I mean, when I first fell in love with these back in, I think it was around 2015, it may have been 2016, I can't remember. I was using loads of alcohol ink, and you know, it does get quite expensive, but I have just ordered a set from Amazon, and I think I paid just under £20 for the set, and I believe there's about 15 different colours in the set, so I will let you know what they're like, whether they're worth buying. They have got good reviews, so I am quite hopeful that they will be worth the money, and I won't have to buy the expensive Tim Holtz ones again. Although, having said that, if you can afford them, the Tim Holtz inks are definitely worth the money. You know, if you're somebody that longs to be creative but is afraid of making mistakes or not getting it right, this technique is absolutely ideal for people like you, because there is no way that you can get this wrong. Because ultimately, these earrings came from this design. And while I was actually doing this one, I wasn't happy with the results. It's very, very messy, but in the end, as you will see, that just simply does not matter. So moving on now to how I created this design. Now this is more like the technique that I used when I used the baking foil. So you take your Yupo paper, which the one that I used here is the very thin one, and you screw it up into a ball, and the idea is to get loads and loads of creases in there, and then smooth it out and just follow what you see me do next. You do need to be aware that this won't work with plain paper. The ink would just sink in and it won't blend. This is pretty much what I did with the baking foil. Although with the baking foil technique it does crease much easier. They're two completely different materials to work with, and I wouldn't say that one's better than the other. They're just different, but with similar effects. And this is basically what you end up with when you've covered the whole sheet with alcohol ink, and then you just work it until you've got a design that you are happy with. You have to know when to stop. For those people that either don't want to have a go at this or can't get hold of the inks, for example, I am going to be putting some of these designs over on my website, on my free printables page. So if you want to have a go at making these earrings, it's worth checking out my website to see which ones of these designs I have made available as free printables, because what actually happened, before I remembered to scan these when they were finished, I began to cut them up before I had actually scanned them. So I ended up actually scanning just parts of the finished images, but you will still be able to make these earrings without having to make your own designs if you don't want to. And what I'm doing here, do you see these little white bits where the alcohol ink didn't cover? I'm just using Sharpie pens in the appropriate colours to colour in the little white patches. Of course you don't need to do this if you don't want to. You might prefer to see the white patches there, but if you don't, and you do end up with some areas that are not covered because the ink didn't run there, Then just use Sharpie pens to colour in the areas, and they work really well because of course Sharpie pens are alcohol based, so it works really well. I've also added some gold in some areas on this particular design using my old technique of having a bit of gold metallic paint on my finger and then just gently rubbing it across the raised areas where the creases are. Now I haven't done this over the entire image because bear in mind that these paintings, these designs, whatever you want to call them, the intention of these is to have micro areas that you want to cut out to make your earrings. So you don't have to make the whole thing uniform, because obviously you want variation in your earring designs. So I've chosen just to put some of the gold burnishing on only some areas of the design. This is a technique that I have been using for years and I really love this. I use it a lot when I create brown paper fabric, and I did do a tutorial some years ago about how to make brown paper fabric, and if you pop on over to my website funcraftstodo@home.com, you will find a link over there in the blog post that goes with this project. You will find a link to my tutorial on how to make brown paper fabric, but it's not actually on YouTube, it's somewhere else online, so you will need the link. Well, now I'm basically finished playing around with alcohol inks, and I'm now about to move on to the next fun part, which is looking closely at your paintings to see which areas you want to use to make your earrings. But first you need to actually make your earring bases. I'm making mine from cereal box card, and you will see me here cutting out 6 shapes for each earring, but actually you only need 5. So make sure that if you use standard cereal box card, you will only need 5. 6 layers is too thick, and obviously you are going to need 10 shapes, 5 for each earring. I use deco mache to glue my shapes together simply because that's what I had on hand. I used pencil to draw out my stencil, so you can see here when you use pencil, I obviously used a soft pencil and it has made the card very dirty because when it comes into contact with the glue, it just, the pencil marks just spread out and look awful. It doesn't matter because you're going to be painting over this and you're going to be putting your designs over the top, but still, you know, it's messy and it's probably best to use a very thin felt tip. I mean extremely thin. Yeah, so these were all done in pencil. It's not good, it didn't work out very well. As far as keeping the work clean, so there's some of my bases made, ready to paint the edges. And now you need to put black metallic paint on the sides. You could use another colour, I just find black because it's, you know, universal, it'll go with everything. And this is the really fun part. You're looking at your finished alcohol ink paintings and you need to decide which areas you're going to focus on for your finished earrings. And this is where the messiness of your paintings really comes into its own. So you can see here I'm using my template to decide which areas look the best. I mean, you can spend ages doing this, and it gives you ideas for when you do your next set of alcohol paintings. Once you've done this once, you realise that you're not making a mess, even when your alcohol paintings are not, you think they're not going well, and you feel like you want to give up. Once you've done this once, you realise that it's very, very difficult to produce an alcohol ink painting that won't work to make earrings. You know, even the worst, or it seems like the worst alcohol ink paintings can make some absolutely gorgeous earrings because you're only focusing on tiny areas and not the whole thing. So when you are doing these paintings, you need to bear in mind that you don't be looking at the whole picture. You need to be looking at parts of the picture to see how they're going to look as, I suppose you could say, tiny pictures in their own right, really. And I really enjoyed this part. You can spend absolutely ages on this. See, that looks lovely. And to do this, I would highly recommend that you get a fine liner, a black fine liner felt tip, to actually draw on top of your painting when you've decided on the areas that you want to choose, and then you very carefully cut them out to make sure that you don't have any of the black lines showing once you've cut the piece out. See, I mean, even this was my least favourite painting, but the earrings that came from this ended up being my favourite earrings. And in many ways it pays to have a painting that is all over the place, because from one sheet of Yupo you can get so many different designs, if that makes sense. You know, if you'd done the whole thing perfectly and all looking, you know, like one uniform picture, you wouldn't get this randomness to choose from. So that's what I meant at the beginning when I said that eventually these paintings will all come together at the end. This is it, where it comes together. You just get some fantastic effects from the way the alcohol ink blends. And can you see now what I meant when I said you don't need any particular skill or talent to paint? You know, this is perfect for people that just want to play and then have something that they can use at the end of it. So you can see that I have actually cut my template up into strips. It's easier to use that way. And I actually created these templates to make my life easier when making earrings. If you would like to buy a set of my earring shape templates, if you get in touch with me on my website, there will be a link at the end. Get in touch with me and let me know if you want to purchase a set of these, and I will tell you where you can get them. Oh, and I should say at this stage, I ended up sticking my designs to the cereal box bases by using Pritt Stick. So I would suggest that you use whatever solid glue that you have, because when I tried to use wet glue to stick the Yupo to the cardboard bases, it didn't want to stick, and so I tried Pritt Stick and it was very successful. It dried quickly and it was moist for long enough that I could move the design around to get it into place, and there was no mess with glue kind of squidging out the edges. So I can highly recommend using a solid stick glue to glue your designs on. And obviously, because we cut these by hand, there can be slight discrepancies depending on how good you are at following lines. But don't worry, because if, like with these ones, I've done them that they're slightly too big, all you need to do is take a tiny pair of sewing scissors and just trim off the excess. And then the next thing you need to do is to take a black Sharpie pen and just colour the edges, because you can see that there's still white showing through there from where the the edge of the U-po. So just colour that in with black Sharpie, and any areas that where you put your black paint on that need touching up, you can do that with your black Sharpie. So from here it's just about neatening everything up and getting ready to put your earring wires on. And then of course the next thing you need to do is make the holes that go that you can put the earring wires through. Those people who've watched my videos before will know that I use this tool called the crocodile, and it makes it very easy to punch holes in quite thick materials, as you can see me doing here. And the joy of these tools is they punch holes in two sizes, and one of the sizes is 1/8 of an inch, and so you can use 1/8 of an inch eyelets to finish the hole off. I did actually use the crocodile tool to set these eyelets, but then I didn't bother to set the others because there was no reason to. I just stuck them in with glue. So most of the eyelets in all the earrings that you see in the pictures were just stuck in there with, I put some Pritt Stick on a toothpick and then just ran the glue around the rim of the eyelet and then pushed it into place, and they won't come out. So this is just more of me using the template to decide what area of the alcohol ink painting I'm going to use for this particular shape of earring. And obviously this is just what it looks like when you've used the stencil to create your black line to cut. And when you've cut one shape, you obviously then need to kind of match up the next shape that you cut. You need to roughly match them up so that you make a pair of earrings. Obviously they don't need to be identical, that's that's the fun of this, but you do need to match them up somewhat so that they make a pair. And this is probably a good time to say that don't throw away any of your scraps. Keep them all, put them in a plastic bag, because they will come in handy for other crafts. And I just need to tell you about glazing and sealing now. I've used my favourite Mod Podge Dimensional Magic for these earrings. Now I put a very thick coat on the pink ones. I didn't for all the others because I thought it kind of took away from the colour somewhat, even when it was dry. So with all the other earrings I just painted a very thin coat of Dimensional Magic on there just to give them a lovely gloss and to make them splash proof. So that's it. That's how you make my alcohol ink earrings. And here you can see some of the examples of them closer up. You can see how pretty they are compared to what the paintings actually look like. Everything looks vastly different once you start to cut your shapes out. Now if you go over to my website, these are some of the designs that you can get, that you can print off. if you don't actually want to have a go at the alcohol inks yourself. Well, thank you so much everyone for watching this far, and if there's anything you want to ask me, if there's any questions you have about anything I've used, please do get in touch with me in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer your questions. There are lots of resources and tools such as the ones that I use in my videos over in my Amazon shops. You can find the links to those shops over on my website. There's a link coming up on the end screen. And also, just to let you know, most of the people who have been following me for several years will know that over the years I've used lots of different painting techniques to create my paper beads and other paper jewellery. And over the next few months I'm going to be recapping with some of the painting techniques that I have developed, and I will be giving away scans of the results for you to use in your craft. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video with more free printables for you. Take care everyone. Bye.